Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? I don't hear you. Are you ready for the next panel? Yes. Good, good. Let's start. I have the privilege to introduce you, the Chairwoman of Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Madame Zeljka Cvijanovic.
I will correct.
Correct?
Approximately.
Let's make it again. Cvijanovic.
Zeljka Cvijanovic. I know that it sounds complicated, even for me, so don't worry.
So, you are our guest. So, and we have 15 minutes, I would like to start you with a short statement and I ask some few questions, Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Good.
I can just introduce myself. As you said, I'm a member of a tripartite presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's a post-conflict society. And unfortunately, I have to say that, we haven't still found, I would say, common ground for all three constituent people living there. And I believe actually that the dialogue is something that is going to help us achieve something which is called our common solutions. But of course, I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here and also to discuss things which include all these important topics like, whether we can transform something which is our challenge into our opportunity, or what needs to be done in order to achieve peace or peace restoration. So I'm here actually to share with you some of my insights and views about the situation in my country or whatever your question is. Thank you.
So, the Bosnian War, after Dayton agreements, is like an example, a good ending of a very complicated situation, and still is working nearly 30 years later. So my question is very simple. Are the all wounds created by the war healed today?
Very simple question. No, they haven't been healed so far. But that's why I said it's important to nourish dialogue in order to heal them, or at least start healing them in a proper way. When you mentioned Dayton Agreement, I have to say that, Dayton Agreement not only ended the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's equally important actually that it established political and constitutional system which enabled us in Bosnia to live side by side and together in peace. And that is the biggest achievement for the last 30 years. We haven't had any conflicts or things like that, or inter-ethnic examples of hatred or things that could kind of heat up atmosphere and bring us to something which is called collapse. But on the other side, there is another process that is ongoing, and it has been like that, transforming Dayton Agreement in a way that it was not envisaged by Dayton Agreement. So nowadays what we have in our reality, and if we compare that institutional-wise, and we compare it with what Dayton Agreement actually created, we can find very much different situation. So, and my position is always that we should have adhered to Dayton Agreement strictly as what they gave us, within this Dayton Agreement. That I believe that Bosnia would be a much happier country nowadays, if he had done that. But nowadays, we also have some other complications. And when you ask about healing and, the wounds, I would say that they are still present there. And I believe that the international interference very much contributed to these wounds to remain open. So that's my position. I believe that actually if these three constituent peoples live in Bosnia and Herzegovina, if they were given proper rights actually to decide on their own, that maybe Bosnia would be, and I believe not only maybe, Bosnia would be a happier country nowadays. So I object very much, the way how this international interference was present there.
10 years ago, I participated in a conference, 20 years of Dayton Accords. And what I got is that not all the accords of Dayton were implemented. And if they are not implemented 20 years, or maybe if you say today even, then maybe there is a room for creating a new constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, just not according to these Dayton Accords, but taking into account the present situation, the interests of all people living in this country. What's your opinion?
My opinion is something which is different from that. I would say that we should stick to what our constitution gives us as our rights and also our duties. But the fact is that in reality, we moved away from what Constitution gave us. And that's why we have problems, like you're constantly jumping from one problem to another one, from one crisis to another crisis. And even currently, we have a kind of big crisis in our country. And there are different reasons for that, but it's kind of the biggest political and constitutional crisis that we have seen in the past 30 years since Dayton was signed. And when I say that I very much object the interference of internationals in my country, I would just give you one example. For instance, Dayton Agreement, in its Annex 10, strictly describes what High Representative is, for instance, and it says, how that person is appointed and actually what the area of responsibility of that person is. But what we have in practice is very much, different from what Dayton said. We have, for instance, persons, and it's been like that for 30 years, who would, for instance, legislate instead of our parliaments. That means that they would impose legislation or laws, trying to position themselves above democratically elected institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this is where I see actually the biggest problem. Now, when you mention that to someone, they will say, okay, that's part of Dayton Agreement, but it's not part of that Dayton Agreement, to act in that way, So this is something which was created, these authorities, and I will say inverted commas, something which was given, then again, inverted commas, through a political conference that was held in Bonn 2 years after the Dayton Agreement was signed. And in my view, actually, all the problems actually emanate from that fact. Because when you look, the history of 30 years of post-war Bosnia, then you will see that all the crises that we have had so far, they had something to do with impositions actually by high representatives, with decisions of high representatives. So I think it's high time actually for domestic structures to decide on their own, and that high representatives should be returned to Annex 10 strictly, and actually adhere to that and behave in the way Annex 10 prescribed. Otherwise, we are going to have even bigger crisis. So, recent example, I will just share it with you. For instance, within 1 year or something like that, we had High Representative who called himself, High Representative, but I objected because I don't think that person actually passed in all the procedures prescribed by Annex 10 of the Dayton Agreement. For instance, changing election law in a country which is a democratic country, in a country which calls itself sovereign country, Bosnia. Then, changing criminal code in order to make it a crime for anyone, who disagrees, with his decisions. So how can it be that in Europe, in civilized world, in democratic world, how can it be that one person who is not elected by the voters in his or her country, that person can impose legislation and pretend that person is above democratically elected parliament. So that's why we have problems in Bosnia. That's my view. And I will be honest with you. I said that, presidency has 3 members. It's 3 members. What I say now is my opinion. And I'm fair enough not to impose my opinion on others. But, others would think that it's normal to have, or maybe one at least, would think that it's normal to have kind of, foreigner who would, non-elected foreigner, who's going to impose legislation, So this is my opinion, and once you have the kind of common sense of all 3 members of the presidency, that is the position of Bosnia. That is the position of Bosnia, and even that is misused, very often by some members of the presidency. But I strongly believe that, if we are kind of given this chance to have proper, genuine internal dialogue, that Bosnia would look like much better than nowadays. Because nowadays it's in collapse.
But I will be a little bit provocative, as I see, I'm not very happy about the actions of High Representative. If you create a new constitution of Bosnia, there could be a situation there is no High Representative at all, you take all the responsibility yourself, And as we see, the Republika Srpska is ready to write its own constitution. Maybe you can focus all the efforts and all together, not only Republika Srpska, on creating a new constitution that will, let's say, work for the nation, and will be much better than the previous one.
If there is political will, anything can be done. But obviously in Bosnia there is no political will of some elements, to give up the position of high representative. So As for myself, I would always stand for such an idea. Okay, let's create something which belongs to us, and that something needs to reflect the reality that you have three constituent peoples, that they have their rights, that no one has been given any possibility or right to manipulate or to take something away from others. So if it is fair solution, then fine. But what I'm telling you is actually that the main problem comes from the fact that the current Constitution has not been implemented fully. That, someone decided to change our political and constitutional reality without changing the Constitution. So now we have kind of, Constitution is there, and something what we have in institutional arena is something else, completely different. So it is kind of a hypothetical question, and of course, if there is goodwill and if position of all constituent peoples are treated equally there, then okay, fine with me to think about that. But basically, what I advocate is that we return to the Constitution and that we are given the rights actually to implement it fully, faithfully, the way how it was envisaged to be implemented.
So it seems that there is a very great level of polarization.
True.
Yes, and there are some reasons behind that. Why is that so? And the question is a very simple one. What's your vision? How to take down this high level of polarization and to create a country which are based on citizens, all citizens, not separate groups of citizens?
I have kind of counter question,
Okay.
if I may do that. Yeah, this polarization. What's the source? What's the root problem? Why we found ourselves in such a situation? That's something we need to kind of consider. And I'm telling you that it's because, what was written was not literally kind of adhered to. That's the problem. So some people feel insecure in such an environment because if you have three ethnic groups, maybe to you it sounds something which is far away, but in Bosnia, sorry, but ethnicity does matter. Belonging to one or this or that, constituent people is something which matters to people there. And why not respect that fact? Why we are trying to turn Bosnia into some, fairy tale, speaking about some new constitution, speaking about some new atmosphere without being kind of, fair enough to understand what the reasons are for this failing state, because Bosnia is a failing state, that's our reality. And whatever is needed, in order to make it better, I'm kind of happy with that, and I'm ready to give my contribution. But I'm telling you, this is not that simple. I think that everybody needs to feel secure there, that their rights are secure there, that no one is privatizing something which belongs kind of to all, and then after that, it's going to be better. Yeah. As long as we have high representatives, it's not going to be better. It's going to be worse.
How do you see the role of leadership? Do you need really leaders, and do you have really leaders who see the vision of tomorrow's Bosnia?
Yes, I can see them, but obviously our ideas and our views of the past, of the present, and of the future are very much different, But I would say that everybody is maybe from their perspective kind of well-intended. But I don't know. We cannot know that unless we sit together and discuss these things. That means that it should be kind of, direct dialogue. And I'm telling you, because this is something I shared also with yesterday when we had this opening part. Based on these, activities now, the current crisis, I will just explain that. Based on such activities of high representative, who took himself the right to change our legislation and do that instead of our parliament, we have changes to the criminal code. And criminal law. And then, based on that, now there is this persecution through judicial system of the most popular leader, who is leader of Serbs, or Republika Srpska, president of Republika Srpska in Bosnia. How can we speak about kind of dialogue, or how can we speak about something which is new creation, new constitution, new this or new that, when you have a situation like that, is there any European country or any civilized country where a foreigner can change the criminal law and say whoever disobeys with me or my decision, he is going to be put in jail? Come on, this is crazy. This is crazy. And by the way, explaining that that person, while doing his constitutional duties, disobeys something which was the decision of the High Representative. Don't you think that we are on the, real European path? We speak about Bosnia moving towards the EU. We speak about Bosnia becoming, I don't know, this or that. This is crazy. And this is not something that can be tolerated anywhere on this planet, you know. And once we get rid of such influences, external influences, then we can speak about Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is going to be stable, which is going to be prosperous. We speak about leaders who can actually contribute to that stability, you know. But as long as you have such negative examples, I don't see kind of, you know, path forward. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, but
we have
you know.
come to the end, but my last question is, you're a chairwoman, as I call you, Madam President.
Yeah, that's okay.
You have a great power, you know. You have a great power to change something, you know. And if there is a situation you really think that the High Representative is a foreigner who interviews in the internal affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina, what's your next step out of this situation? What's your proposal? What to do? What to do?
I need to explain that. Like, you know, we have a rotation system within the presidency, so it is based on 8 months period. 8 months period. So this is now my term, and I had previously also 1 term within this 4-year term or mandate, you know. But it takes 3. It doesn't take only 1. If you want to have discussions, and if you want to have fair play, and if you want to introduce something which is kind of new value to Bosnia and Herzegovina, it requires 3 persons like there. And it requires actually that everyone in Bosnia and Herzegovina, whatever the level of authority, whether it is kind of, you know, Republika Srpska, one of the 2 entities, then Federation, which is another entity, and further decentralized into 10 cantons, you know, it requires all. You know, it's not kind of, you know, it's only people who operate within joint Bosnia and Herzegovina institutions. It is people who operate at all levels of governance, like within Bosnia and Herzegovina, to sit together and decide what they are going to do with the country, because it is obviously a failing country.
You see, I have been
to
the building of presidents.
Speaking about this 3, I'm there, like, you know.
Yes, but therefore I know they all you 3 sit in the same building all the time. Nevertheless, only one is a chair person. You know. You can talk to each other every day.
Yeah. But you know, it's not only 3 of us, as I said. First, it takes 3 of us, but it's not only 3 of us, because I'm elected in Republika Srpska. That is 49% of the territory. This is where I was elected. Bosnia is not kind of a single election unit. And the other 2 colleagues are elected in the other entity. And the fact that you have, like, Bosnia, and that it is kind of composed of 1 republic and 1 federation, further decentralized into 10 cantons, it shows actually that it is kind of, you know, it's a huge structure. It's very dense constitutional structure. And when you say 3 of you, no, I'm telling you that it's all of us. Because all of us have our constitutional responsibilities in accordance with what Constitution says. So it requires all to be part of that, like, you know. So, okay, I understand that it can be kind of initiated by 3. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I understand that. But in order to be initiated by 3, it requires 3. Not only 1 or not 2.
But if you have 3 leaders telling their nation what's the next step, what's their vision, all together, you know, it's a great force. I wish you to use it. And thank you very much for this nice conversation. You know.
Thank you.
I think, you know, all the audience got more information about what's going on, what's the definite situation, you know, and how the history has an influence on today and on today's decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.